The moment I touched his mind, something pushed back. I did not expect that. I am Vareth, a reader of the Ashglass Order. I have entered thousands of minds across many worlds. No mind has ever pushed back before. Not once. Not even a little. But this one did, and I felt it like a cold wind rushing up from a place with no bottom. The human sitting in the chair in front of me was called Ellis Grant. He was a pilot, captured 3 days ago when his small fighter went down near our border station. Command wanted answers from him. They wanted to know where his fleet was hiding. They believed I could pull the answer out of his mind in minutes. I believed it too. Humans were new to the galaxy. We had only known them for 6 years. Every report said their minds were simple and easy to read. I walked into that room expecting an easy task. I was wrong from the very first second. I placed my hand near his temple and opened the link. Normally, when I enter a new mind, I see the surface first. Simple thoughts, recent fear, basic training. It is like walking into a shallow pool of water. But with Ellis Grant, I stepped in, and there was no shallow part at all. I fell into something deep and dark, and I did not know how far down it went. The first thing I felt was cold. Not the cold of that room. A different cold. Older, heavier, sitting inside him like a stone that had been there for years. I followed it, curious, the way I always follow the strongest thread in a mind. It led me to a memory that was not even his own. It was a story his grandfather had told him, about a freezing battlefield from 100 years before he was born. Somehow, through only words spoken around a table, that cold had traveled through 3 generations and settled inside this one man, fully alive, fully real. I felt it in my own thoughts like it was my memory now, not his. I pulled back and tried a different path. I looked for something soft, something recent, something that would break easily under pressure. I found a hospital room. His mother, sick for many years, growing weaker every day. I saw young Ellis sitting beside her bed, doing homework instead of holding her hand, because watching her breathe wrong was too hard for a child to bear. There was guilt buried in that memory, old and heavy. I thought this was the crack I needed. I pushed on it gently, expecting it to open like a door. It did not open. It held firm. The guilt was not a weakness inside him. It was a support beam holding up the rest of his mind, the same way a chimney holds up a house built around it. I pushed harder, and the whole structure did not shake at all. Something inside him pushed back again, quiet and steady, as if to say, I already carried this weight once. You do not get to make me carry it twice. I have broken minds far older and far more guarded than this. I did not understand what I was facing, so I went deeper, searching for the true bottom of him, the place where every mind eventually gives way. What I found instead confused me even more. Layers of hard years, one after another, stretching far back through generations passed down as stories. Sickness that spread through entire cities, killing thousands, and yet somewhere in every one of those dark years, people still building things that would outlive them. Long wars that should have destroyed his whole species, and still, every morning after every terrible night, someone planting new seeds in the same soil where they had buried their dead the day before. Long winters remembered only as bedtime stories told to children, stories that always somehow ended with someone keeping a small fire alive. I searched for the point where a mind like this must surely break. Every mind has one. I have found it in beings who lived for 1,000 years, and beings who lived only 30. I expected a young species like this one to break quickly, easily, right near the surface. Instead, every time I thought I had reached the bottom, another layer opened beneath it. And none of those layers were made of fear. They were made of something else entirely, something that felt, from the inside, like the same choice being made again and again, across hundreds of years. We continue anyway. I reached what I believed, at last, was solid ground. A memory that belonged only to him, not passed down, not a story from someone else's mouth. 3 days before he was captured, his own unit had come under heavy attack. He watched several of his closest friends lost within moments. I saw him sitting alone afterward, shaking, thinking with complete clarity, we might not win this fight. There it was, the doubt, the true crack I had been searching for. I pressed into it fully, the way I always do when a mind finally shows its weakest point, expecting him to give way completely, expecting the surrender that always comes once a person sees their own doubt reflected back at them by an outside mind. Underneath that doubt, so close to it that they were almost the same thought, I found what came next in his mind. It was not despair. It was not some grand act of courage either, the kind I expected from a species that tells each other hero stories. It was smaller than that, and far heavier for being so small. Fine, then we do not win. We just do not stop. That was the true floor of him. Not a wall built to keep me out, a place where a whole species, according to everything hidden in his mind, had long ago stopped asking whether they could survive, and started only asking what they would do while surviving, and had been answering that same question without stopping, since long before they even had writing to record the answer. I pulled back from his mind completely. Not because I was ordered to. I no longer understood what breaking him was supposed to achieve, or what it would even mean to break something that had already been broken so many times before, across its whole history, and had simply refused to stay that way. Ellis Grant opened his eyes. I had not realized, until that exact moment, that a human strapped into a chair, cut off from every weapon, every friend, and every hope of rescue, with his mind held wide open by someone who had once entered the thoughts of powerful leaders and never failed to find their weak point, could look at me with something close to pity. His voice came out rough and tired, worn down by everything I had put him through. You were looking for the place where I give up, he said. There is not one. There is only the place where I choose to keep going instead. My whole people are built around that same spot. It is not even a secret. It is just how we are. I did not get the coordinates that day. I wrote my report honestly, even though I knew it would not be believed. The truth was this: the human mind does not have a breaking point, where a breaking point should be. It has years of loss sitting exactly there instead, and somehow, over and over, something new is always planted on top of it. Command was not pleased with my report. They sent another reader after me, a younger one, more confident, certain he could succeed where I had failed. I watched through the recording feed as he entered the same mind 3 days later. I watched him search the same layers I had searched. I watched him reach the same floor I had reached. And I watched him leave that room in silence, saying nothing at all, because there was nothing left to say that I had not already written. After that, something in me had changed. I began to notice it in small ways I had never paid attention to before. A supply officer forced to abandon his station, who kept working through the night anyway, just to make sure others had what they needed to escape safely. A young medic, exhausted beyond belief after days without proper rest, still checking every wounded soldier twice before allowing herself to sit down. None of them were forced to keep going. They simply did, the same way Ellis Grant had, without needing anyone to tell them why. I began to wonder if this was not a weakness in their species at all, but something closer to their greatest strength, something none of us had ever properly measured, because we had always been looking in the wrong place for it. Ellis Grant was released not long after, part of an exchange between our two sides that neither of us had expected to happen so soon. Before he left the station, he asked to speak with me one final time. I agreed, curious what a human would choose to say to the very mind that had tried, and failed, to take everything from him. He did not ask for an apology. He simply said one thing. He said that being read by me had shown him something about himself that he had never fully understood until someone else searched every corner of his mind and still could not find the end of it. He said maybe that was the whole point of surviving hard things. Not to feel proud afterward, just to prove, quietly, to yourself, that you could keep walking forward, even when there was nothing left pushing you, except habit and stubbornness. I have entered many more minds since that day. I no longer search for the point where they will break. I search instead for the point where they decide to continue, because I have learned that this is where the truest part of any being actually lives. Some species build their whole foundation not on comfort or peace, but on ruins they were never meant to survive, and they build it there anyway, over and over, without complaint, and without ever calling it anything special. I still think about him sometimes, sitting quietly in that chair, worn out completely, and somehow still steady enough to look at me, an alien who had unmade far older minds than his, and simply tell me the truth. There is no floor here. There is only the choice to keep going, and I have come to understand that this single, quiet choice, repeated endlessly across an entire history of hardship, is the strongest thing I have ever found inside any mind, on any world, in all my years of searching.